Hello, everyone out there. I'm glad that we're back online again. Welcome back to my vlog, I guess I would call it. Hoping that you had a good week and that you were able to go over the emotional vampires little tidbit that I gave out there. So we were focusing on this particular book that I have here, and we've been speaking about it. Emotional Vampires by Albert J. Bernstein, PhD. So you're more than welcome to pick it up. It's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, so on and so forth. He also has a website, so you're welcome to go there. And a lot of what I'm speaking about, he has on his website. So it may be new to us and new to me, but he's been doing this for quite a while. So please take a look at his information. So last week we began speaking about emotional vampires and some of the things they do to us, which of course are very annoying. So I'm just going to give you again a brief overview of that, and then we're going to go to the second part, which is today on defending ourselves from emotional vampires. So we spoke about the antisocial vampire. This is the one that is very heedless of social rules. They're kind of daredevils. They like to do things. Then we spoke a little about the histrionic vampire. This is an individual. Another word for them is kind of dramatic. They like to be the center of attention. There is no act that they don't like. They need to be seen. They need to be heard, and so on. Then the narcissistic, as is written in the book, they are legends in their own minds. They are all about me, 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 me. The obsessive compulsive, they are addicted to safety, but to such a degree that sometimes it stops them from doing other things. They're very detail oriented. They have a hard time when they're not in control of things. So the micromanagers, they may be this type of individual, and the paranoid. They are constantly seeking conspiracy theories. They're seeking hidden meanings and deeper realities, and sometimes that can be very annoying because we don't live close to the Bermuda Triangle. And so they're always looking for where things have disappeared to, or where things are going, or hidden meanings in the way you look at them, the way you don't look at them, what you said, what you didn't say. They like to read between the lines, but between the lines, sometimes there's nothing, and can become very annoying. So that's just a brief overview of some of these emotional vampires. So today, just for the time that we have left, I want to speak to you about how to protect yourselves from them. So again, the antisocial is the one where you need to recognize them before they turn on the charm. The histrionic, it's important that you never tell them what you don't want the world to know. Narcissistic, don't compete with them. They refuse to lose. The obsessive compulsive, don't get caught in details with them. And the paranoid, stick to the truth and don't give in to their barrage of questions. So that's just a brief overview. Now the author, Bernstein, presents us with some of the ways to protect ourselves from these emotional vampires. And so here they are. First of all, know them, know their history, and know your goal. In other words, the way to anticipate these vampires is by knowing how they've acted in the past. Why? Because generally what people have done in the past is what they will do in the future. The big mistake you can make with these vampires is assuming without evidence that though their record has been bad in the past, they have learned their lesson and will do better this time. We've heard that story before. And unfortunately, when people develop patterns of living, things they did in the past will occur again in the present and in the future. When you deal with emotional vampires, always ask yourself what you're trying to accomplish and why. If you're not sure, don't do anything until you've thought about it carefully. Remember, you might think that you're helping an individual when in reality, you might want to have a relationship with that person or whatever it is, and you get drawn into some negative stuff. Another way to protect yourself from an emotional vampire is to get outside verification. You cannot believe everything they tell you. Vampires or emotional vampires want you to listen to them alone. To control you, they're going to try to isolate you from your usual sources of information. Always check out what they say with a trusted friend, especially when you'd rather not be doing things that they might be asking you to do. Remember, vampires can't operate in the light of day. In other words, when the truth comes out, you're going to find that some of these people will disappear. Remember, they can't see their reflection in the mirror, so you might have to get their reflection from an outside, verifiable source. Now, something else, another way to protect yourself is to do what they don't do. To prevail over emotional vampires, the author says, you must rush in where they fear to tread. In other words, your greatest strengths may lie in doing the things you can do that vampires can't do, these emotional vampires can't do. For example, They may have a difficult time speaking the truth. Well, you certainly can speak the truth. So don't get caught into their web of lies or whatever they're trying to do to draw you in. So stay away from that. Something else you can do is pay attention to actions, not words. You've heard the saying, actions speak louder than words, and this is so true. Quite often, we're caught up with individuals who can speak, wow, they can speak of a storm, a hurricane. In the way they use their words, they almost mesmerize you. In Spanish, we call that people that have labia. Labia means they have good lips. Now, that sounds kind of weird, but what it's talking about is they have an incredible ability to speak. Someone called it the gift of gab. I don't think it's such a great gift, but for some individuals, they admire that kind of thing. So what do you have to do? Pay attention to their actions. Forget about their words. Words are cheap. Words are many. Words come quite often, but what are they actually doing? Well, what vampires say is often very different from what they do. To avoid being drained, always focus on what they do. You cannot go by what they say. Case in point, when you have the individual saying, yeah, I'm going to visit my son. Yeah, I'm going to visit my wife. Yeah, I'm going to do this. Yeah, the alimony check is in the mail. Yeah, right. So pay attention to what they're doing. Forget about what they're saying. Something else, another way to protect yourself from emotional vampires is to identify their hypnotic strategy. What is it that they're doing that kind of gets you stuck? They are consummate hypnotists, the author says. When you see through the smoke and mirrors, their illusions don't work nearly so well. In other words, don't get caught up in what they're saying that they're going to do. Because if you get caught up in their hypnotizing words, their mesmerizing words, what's going to happen is in general, we want to believe individuals. We don't want to believe that people are lying to us. We're not comfortable in calling people liars. And you don't have to call them liars, but sometimes they will get caught up in their own lies. And then you become aware, and what can happen is that they will just move away from you because now they know that you know the truth. So, again, don't get caught up in their hypnotic strategy. Another way to protect yourself is to pick your battles. This is very important. It says, the author says, to be an effective vampire fighter, you must be able to pick the important battles and ignore the rest. You must also avoid fighting battles you can't possibly win. It's not a good idea to get into a war of words with them because they may be excellent at throwing words. Remember, they can't act, but they certainly can speak quite well. So you have to be careful about that. And when the author says pick your battles, what he's saying is, why would you get into a battle that you obviously cannot win? Whether it be with words, whether it be with something that they want from you and they're constantly getting it from you, you may have to do an entire turnaround and stay away from them. So you have to pick your battles. Maybe you should not visit them so often. Now, this is difficult because sometimes the emotional vampires are members of our family or members of our extended family. It could be our own relatives. It could be a mother or father, a sister or brother. It could be someone in your own home. What do? Well, sometimes you need to be quiet. Let them do all the talking. Once you start agreeing with them or saying, they are going to think they got you covered, that they've captured you. So sometimes it's better to remain silent and say, for example, oh, we can talk about that later, just to save some time for yourself. Another way to protect yourself is what the author calls let contingencies do the work. What does that mean? Well, a contingency is an if-then situation. If I do this, well, this is going to happen, right? The law of consequences, for example. So what can you do? The only way emotional vampires learn anything is by experiencing the consequences of their own behavior. Now, if you're constantly in savior mode, you're never going to let them suffer the consequences of their behavior. So you got to get out of the savior mode. You need to let them suffer the consequences of their actions. If you're ever tempted to rescue a vampire, think about what you're teaching them or her about how the game of life is played. You cannot constantly be putting money out of your pocket for someone who may have a good job but is constantly throwing their money away. Or for someone who's hanging out with other individuals and perhaps using their resources for that other individual but then come to hit you up for something. No. You cannot allow that to be done with your life because not only are you being drained emotionally, but you might also be being drained of your resources. Something else the author says is that you need to choose your words as carefully as you pick your battles. Emotional vampires, with whatever you tell them, however you say it, and when you say it, are all crucial to the outcomes that you're likely to achieve. They may pick up on the nuances of your tone, or they may get an idea that you're giving in to them. So you have to be pretty stable and prepared for whatever they're going to counteract or what you're trying to do with them. Something else that you have to do is ignore tantrums. Why? Because when a child has a tantrum, you know that they're going to continue and continue and continue until you give in. Emotional vampires, very same thing. They're going to try to wear you down with the texting, with the calling, with the asking, and out of sheer frustration, you might give in to them. You can't do that. When they don't get their way, they may throw a tantrum. And they can also explode into all sorts of emotional outbursts. The only purpose for which is for you to give in, so you can't give in. And finally, you have to know your own limits. Dealing with emotional vampires requires a lot of effort. They may be worth it, maybe they're not worth it. Only you can decide. Sometimes it's better to run away or not get involved in the first place. So to reiterate, with the antisocial vampire, recognize them before they turn on the charm. Don't give in to that daredevil nonsense because you might end up getting hurt. With the histrionic, the dramatic person, don't tell them stuff that you don't want other people to know because they thrive on giving out information and on being very dramatic about things. With the narcissistic, don't compete with them. Remember, they love themselves more than they love anybody else. You're never going to be to compete with their first love. The obsessive compulsive, don't get caught in details. Look at the bigger picture. And finally, with the paranoid, stick to the truth. Don't give in to their constant questioning. So I hope this has been useful for you. Next week, I hope to touch on another topic. But remember this, emotional vampires are very draining. They suck the life and the energy out of you. Don't give in to them, and it's going to make you a stronger and a better person. So remember this, if you don't stand up for something, you will fall for anything. Until next time, take care.